of our five values: compassion, collaboration, clarity, and curiosity, and courage, as it relates to why we're here. And so I think those values that are critical to such a time as this. I think right now we're in a time of fear. And we don't want to be in a time of fear, so we want to, again, as we gather today, lost my train of thought here. As we gather today, it's so important because we must not live in fear. We must have courage, and that courage we need to show compassion to those in our community who are suffering. My hope is that we continue to collaborate in community so that more of us can prosper and experience good health here in the 616. So we are going to now move forward with our next panel. So those panelists are making their way to the stage. That would be great. We have remarks before that.
We can't have fun.
As our panelists get settled, I want to bring your attention to one of the tables in the room. So, Pretty Pennies is back there. Shout out. And I thought it would be fitting as we get ready to get into this panel discussion to just share that they are planning on some financial literacy lessons, sessions that are coming up. They're happening in the month of June. They're also happening in the month of July. They have sign-up sheets back there, and so if you are interested, please stop at their table and sign up. You will get a copy of Get Good with Money when you sign up for that class. And so I don't know if any of you follow Tiffany, but she is the budgetista. She is amazing. And so as we lead into this topic around home ownership, generational wealth, it'll be important to figure out how you save those pennies so that we can start to create that generational wealth that we're all looking for. All right? So that's the shout out. If any other shout outs need to happen, just come see. All right. We ready? Okay. So we're going to move into the segment around breaking the cycle, economic empowerment and Black business. And so this panel is going to explore 4 key themes: capital access gaps, networking and mentorship barriers, entrepreneurship support, and community investment strategies. These topics are designed to spark honest dialogue, highlight systemic challenges, and surface actionable solutions. I want to welcome our esteemed panelists, Mr. Eric Brown, President and CEO of Urban League of West Michigan, Mr. William Grice, Entrepreneur and Executive Director of Michigan Minority Supplier Development Council, Melisha Reid, owner of Reid Financial Services and Solutions, and Jamiel Robinson, founder of Grand Rapids Area Black Businesses. Thank you all for joining us today. Can we get a round of applause for our panelists? So this first topic is around capital access gaps. I want to start with the basic definition around capital access gaps. This refers to the disparities in the ability of individuals, businesses, or communities to obtain financial resources they need to start, sustain, or grow economic activities. And so my first question is going to be for Jamiel and Mr. William. What are the most common barriers Black entrepreneurs face when trying to access capital? And Jamiel, you can start off with that.
Oh, I was gonna let my senior brother.
Oh, okay, very well.
But I got respect for my elders, and that's just like Bill. That's my friend. So I'm Jamiel Robinson. One of the biggest barriers, there's a lot of barriers that we face to capital access. We can easily just point to racism. We can easily point to a lot of things. But it's also, when you go to a bank, go to try to get traditional financing, it's our personal income statement. So when you're looking to fill out a loan, It's pretty much the fact that us as black folks lack access and lack wealth. That's one of the biggest barriers that we have when it comes to capital access. So we don't have access, so when you go to a bank, most loans, so if you're looking to get a $100 loan, just to make it simple math, the bank requires that, the bank usually only funds 80 cents of that, and we have to come up with the other 20 cents. And because we either personally don't have that in our household or within our immediate network, friends, family, we typically miss out because we don't have the 20% of equity that we have to put into our own projects. Outside of also our businesses that we typically start are very low revenue generating. So we start a lot of lifestyle businesses. So like right now, somebody is grilling somewhere, it's a nice day, and somebody will say, I love your barbecue. And then we're gonna go and be like, oh, I'm gonna start a barbecue business. And those are usually low growth. So instead of looking at it from a scalable model, it's not really scalable. You probably at the best going to make around $250,000, but on average, black businesses make less than $100,000. On average, we really make only $30,000 a year in our businesses, which we're essentially buying ourselves a full-time job. And so those are some of the barriers when it comes to our personal work, our personal wealth that we typically don't have, our inability to have assets to leverage. So we either don't own a home, and I know that's coming up later, or we don't own any assets that are actually worth anything. So our car is not an asset. We don't have the right kind of jewelry, things like that could be. So we just don't have the 80% to be able to collateralize a lot of the loans. And even from a non-traditional CDFI, which is Community Development Financial Institution, a lot of those are character-based. But a lot of the times we're looking at startups as opposed to even potentially looking to acquire already existing businesses that have cash flow. So we're always looking to start from the beginning with zero as opposed to looking at other businesses that are for sale that already have a track record of years in business, and you pretty much are just buying their revenue.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. He could have just wrote the book on that and gave you the roadmap for it, because at the end of the day, the only thing I would add to it is that our knowledge of the lending institution, right? Whatever it is, right? If it's private equity, if it's VC, venture capitalists, if it's CDFI, institutional banking, every one of those processes go through this thing called an underwriting process, period. They just go through that's a fancy name of saying application and vet you out and mitigate risk, right? So if you understand that process, then it's easier to play in that field. It's just like any sports. If you understand the rules of engagement, you can get engaged. If you don't understand the rules of engagement, it's hard to navigate through. The last thing I'll just add to that is our fear, right? We have a fear of talking to people about money. I don't understand that, right? Most of us bank at the banks and we go to tellers most of the time. Have you ever just sat in a seat and let the little office people behind the glass serve you instead of the teller, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You have money in that bank and they have to service you. You are a client to them. And the other thing is that banks don't have any of their own money. They loaned your money, right? So understand you have rights and privileges. A lot of times we don't understand we have. Now, I'm a 3/4 full person, right? That means my glass is always 3/4 full. I don't believe we go in, they tell me no, okay, you said no, somebody gonna say yes, right? No matter how many times people tell you no, don't stop. If your grind and your ambition, you believe in what you're trying to do, don't stop, right? Because the only person that can defeat you at that point is you. Right? They can keep telling you no all day long, but you have to understand their process and then understand your drive.
Thank you so much. And so Jamiel just mentioned a CDFI, and so this question is for Mr. Brown. What role can alternative funding models like community development financial institutions, crowdfunding, or cooperative lending play in closing the capital gap?
Thank you. Great question, and I just want to pick up a little bit on what both Jamiel and Bill said. Generally, black-owned businesses start with a lot less equity or a lot less ability to raise funds than their white counterpart businesses. So we know, just like in the racial wealth gap, which home business ownership is a contributing factor, that we're already behind the eight ball when we do that. We're not able to go to friends and families. We don't have the capital to be able to start businesses, to be able to fail, and more capital to start new businesses until we find out when that hits. And also, as Bill talked about the fear, that leads to 2 times as many entrepreneurs, black aspiring entrepreneurs, don't even apply. They don't even apply. And then 2/3 of the ones that do apply, they say that they're getting rejected at a much higher level than white businesses. Thereby, community access, CFIs are there to bridge some of those gaps. One thing that is paramount in the traditional financial realm is that there's really no explanation, there's no relationship. We'll talk about making a relationship, but they really just see us as numbers, as transactional, and there's no explanation for the rejection. But with a CFI, we're gonna explain that throughout the steps. It's a relationship throughout the steps. A relationship to be able to provide even the technical assistance to say, to get from a no to a yes. There's also lack of representation in the lending and traditional lenders. Not a lot of black bankers, not a lot of black bankers that have high-level decision making, not a lot of black bankers that are business bankers. In the CFI realm, we changed that to that the lending, those loan officers are, they look more like the community that they're trying to serve. There's more representation that's made up here. And there's really no ability to relay kind of the soft information around lendability. And that's a greater opportunity within the CFIs to build those relationships. In another time, I will talk later, but there's CFIs are more relational based. They're looking to make yes, they're looking to help these small, in a lot of cases, underrepresented minority businesses to be able to get the ability to be able to have the capital that they need. A couple of things that I'll just throw out there is we need to expand public and private support for community development financial institutions who lend to the small minority women businesses. We also need to get private equity more involved in this, as well as the larger financial institutions. We need to incentivize those institutions to partner with CFIs to target minority businesses. We all know that as minority businesses, there are more out there. It's going to grow, real true growth from the bottom up is what we need to do. And we need to continue to fund those. We know that the current administration has attacked CFIs at the federal level. Over $300 million a year, $343 million a year are allocated to CFIs. They want you to think that it's just for minority businesses, although that is a portion of it. A lot of affordable housing, new market tax credits, and so on and so forth are associated. That's why he had to push back on that. But we need to continue to advocate for those things to happen as well.
Awesome, thank you. And so we talked about, the funds through CDFIs and other collaborative efforts, but I'm wondering, how can we ensure that public and private grant programs are accessible and inclusive? And Melisha, can you just give us a little bit of insight on that?
Sure. My name is Melisha Reid Roberts, and I would just say that in successful grant writing, in a lot of situations, you can't tell people how to spend their money. So I would advocate that you write your grant proposals to align with the funder, that you set yourself up for success and you make sure that everything in your grant is thorough, it's relevant, you've done your research, and you align to the person giving out the money, as opposed to trying to tell them how they should spend the money. So my answer is really that your proposal should be thorough, you should do the research on the organization giving out the money, and make sure that they can't tell you no, that you've met everything on their checklist so that they can't eliminate or disqualify you. And that's what successful grant writing really is.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Brown, anything to add there?
Yeah, I have a little bit. From an institution standpoint, I think our grant-making institutions they can simplify the process. They really make it highly technical language, and a lot of times that's going to eliminate our friends that has a barrier with the language. But a technical jargon, a lot of times people don't even apply because the technical jargon is there, and it deters them from applying to the grant. They also can provide technical assistance throughout and capacity building workshops throughout the process. And when those grant-making organizations do that, we need to take advantage of those opportunities. They throw those out there, and if we don't participate, then they're not going to throw those out there anymore. So pre-application workshops, and they need to provide step-by-step tutorials. This is not a world that, I won't say I won't speak for this room, but this is not a world that many of us live in where we're writing grants to be able to try to raise funds throughout the process. So we need to take advantage of those things and push them to those. And there are some grant-making organizations within the area that do those things. So look to take advantage of that. They need to promote them within the trusted community. Again, there are some organizations, I don't call any of them out for lack of belief, but they do a good job of having decision makers that are deciding on the grants, sitting within the organization, targeting funds directly towards minority communities. And they also need to, I know we live in a digital world, but some of us that got gray hair or thin hair like I do, we're not as up on the digital as some are. We need to still have some of that paper, old-fashioned handshake type of relationship building going on. And partner with the community-based organizations to help get the word out and to be able to help them mitigate through some of that technical stuff.
I just ask them really quick, and this is just more so of a reality check. So we're talking about business development and business growth and success. There are no grants for you. COVID is long gone and over with. It's really mostly debt financing, and us in the Black community, we're so scared of going out. It's a fear because we've seen people go into business and we've seen a bank, take their house or take their assets and things like that. So it creates generational fear, but there are no grants. The very, very few grants that are out there are more national, and you're going after in competition with people from all across the country. There are no local grants from foundations or the state or anything like that. So I know a lot of times businesses come up, and when we're working with them, they say, "Oh well, hey, I'm not starting until I get a grant." I'm like, "Well, you never started." So look for other sources. There's a lot of other resources out there, and us on the panel, we can definitely help you navigate those systems, one of which is the CDFI.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that. We're going to move to the next topic here, and it's around networking and mentorship barriers. And so according to a QuickBooks report cited by Forbes, 55% of Black entrepreneurs expressed a desire for more mentorship from other Black business owners. Okay? And so, Melisha, asking you this question, why is mentorship so critical for Black entrepreneurs, and what makes it hard to find?
I would say that it's critical for 3 to 4 reasons. One is access to their experience and their strategic information, access to their networks. Mentors can open up networks for you, bring you into rooms that you didn't even know existed. I think that it's important that you know that a mentor is there to help support you and bring accountability and focus, but it's really up to the mentee to develop the relationship. And I think oftentimes we get that wrong. We believe the mentor should be the one driving the car, and it's really the mentee that should be initiating the calls, the conversations, the requests for coffee, and the meetings and the lunch dates. If the mentee takes control of the relationship, I believe they'll get more out of it. But it's critical because mentors can give you tactical information that you just don't have access to. And sometimes that network expansion or introduction to other people, it's valuable because it can take years to develop those relationships, and a mentor can get you in the room and a handshake and an introduction within minutes, seconds, or an email. So I think it's critical to have mentors. I think it's difficult because oftentimes there's lack of senior leadership that looks like us. So finding a mentor that looks like us can be difficult because they're just not in those places. I think sometimes there's also a mismatch. So people believe oftentimes that if I'm an accountant, my mentor has to be an accountant. That's not true. My 3 mentors, none of them are accountants. They understand business, they understand banking, and they understand the world. So those are the things that I get from them, their years of experience and their tactical information. So they don't necessarily need to be in the lane that you're in. They don't need to be in the industry that you're in to be a quality mentor.
Awesome. Anyone else want to share insight on that? Okay. There's a follow-up question that wasn't on the script. And so you talked about your 3 mentors. Can you give us examples of the types of mentors we should have? Like, I know it's based on need, but I think there is this misnomer that they have to be in the same field that you're in. So what types of mentors should you be looking for if you're looking to be an entrepreneur?
Sure. I think the important things are, one, that they're a successful either business owner or someone that is just successful, period. These are the things that I look for. So I also need someone that's consistent, right? So if they can't bring accountability and focus, if they're not consistent in their own lives, so watch how they show up, watch the fruits that they're bearing. Just pay attention to how they're moving in different circles. And then the other thing that I think is important is that they're connected. Sometimes, like I said, a mentor they can open doors that you didn't even know existed. Oftentimes, jobs are awarded, bids are awarded just based on relationship. And that mentor can do that for you. So just look for someone who's consistent, successful, they stand for what they say they stand for, and that you're noticing how they're bearing fruit in the community.
Thank you.
While he's grabbing my answer that we, as much as we want to have mentors that look like us, unfortunately in our community, I think that's going to be a struggle in a lot of different places. We don't have very many large businesses. We don't have, now we're getting a few more people that run large nonprofits. But to have folks that look like us for that mentorship, we're going to have to get over that a little bit and look and go across. I know you didn't explicitly say that, but that's one thing that we have to do. And earlier in the process, as well as things that relate to each other, look for mentorship in personal areas and other areas that complement what it is that you're where you want to be mentored.
And I'll just add to one thing there is find 3 mentors, one in your current state, one in where you aspire to be, and one that is so far out your reach that you couldn't possibly in your wildest dreams imagine that you'll be there. And why do you say that? Why do I say that? Because if you get a mentor where you're at and where you're trying to go, you get your current state and the future state. If you get a far-reaching that you're like, this got to be a miracle in order to pull this one off, right? And then I'll deal with that thing called fear again. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? If you're comfortable with your mentor, it's probably the wrong one. I'm just going to be very, very transparent with you. If you're comfortable, it's probably the wrong one because they're telling you everything you want to hear. They pacifying you. In business, it's wicked out here. It is wicked. When I say wicked, especially for people of color, you may not want to own it, you may not like it, whatever, it is what it is. Let's make it happen, but then you be the driver of your destiny, not anybody else.
Thank you so much. I think that's a worthy of a hand, right? That sound good. So I want to move on to Jamiel. How does the lack of representation in business networks and leadership circles affect access to opportunity?
One thing I've always said is proximity determines opportunity. The closer you are to something happening, the better chances you are to be able to access that. An example of if we all were somewhere on the West Coast, let's just say in Bill Gates' garage, what do our life look like if we gave Bill Gates $500 back in the 80s versus the opportunity today? So proximity to opportunity. Typically, if you see something on the news, the opportunity is already passed. Most deals are already done by the time it makes the 5 o'clock news. So when I say proximity, it's building those networks. Everything in business is relationships. I don't care if you believe you have an equal opportunity. If Bill and I have been boys for 30 years and Bill puts forth an opportunity, I got a first shot. Even if I don't even do anything that Bill has asked, Bill say, hey, do you sell widgets? I'm like, no, I don't. He said, well, start making widgets and I'm gonna buy them from you. That's the difference when it comes to relationships and networks. A lot of times they're doing business with themselves. And so a lot of times us in our community, we're not in these rooms and we're not in these spaces. And so we don't know when opportunity presents themselves. So one of the things I say, regardless if you believe it or not, get on some kind of municipality, committee, or board. That's when opportunity is first going to present itself. You see what's happening in Grand Rapids as far as the amphitheater, you see what's happening as far as the soccer stadium, and even the river, those conversations, and I was around a lot of that. That was back in like 2014, 14. So when DGRI did their GR4, the downtown master plan, they have already begun putting forth for what we see today as far as the amphitheater, the river system, the trails, and all those things. So if you get there early enough, you'll be able to access those opportunities. Us not being in those spaces and being able to inform. So sometimes you don't even have to be the one that can take advantage of the opportunity. It's really getting information out to our community and putting it in the hands of those who are either qualified or have the capacity to go after these opportunities, because they may be out. If you're a business owner, for those of us in the room that are business owners, you're too busy doing whatever you have to do between the time you open your doors to the time you close your doors, and even after your business closed, making sure you have enough revenue coming in to pay your staff, or even to have your own lights continue to go and operate. So they don't have a lot of time to go out and seek opportunities, and so it takes all of us being in those spaces, in those places, and then being selfless enough to bring it back. Because a lot of times we hold on to these quote unquote opportunities and figuring out how we can personally benefit from those, and not every opportunity is for us. And so a lot of us, take opportunity and we have our fists clenched, when you need to have your hands open and you need to allow for opportunities and things to flow in and out. Not everything that comes to you is for you, and so you just have to be able to be selfless enough to pass on those opportunities. We have to get over it in our community where, I don't ever in my life want to see Eric with one more dollar than me, because whatever reason that makes you feel inferior or inadequate. And we have to get over that, because Eric having $200,000 more dollars he may in the future, hire my son who's sitting over there at the table with his Beats headphone on. Once he's graduated from college. So we have to know that it's not about what we have today. It's about the opportunity for them to employ our kids and our kids' kids by allowing for Eric or Bill or Melisha to be able to build their companies. That's what happens. Microsoft is a $1 billion or almost $1 trillion company. They didn't, and then hire people at the highest of levels of income. We have to build those scalable businesses in our community and not be selfish like we are.
So that's a great segue into the next question. And so how can established business leaders and institutions be more intentional about opening those doors? Mr. Grice?
Well, I think one thing we got to do is understand it's time out for small business, right? At the end of the day, we got to employ people, right? Our businesses most of the time are lifestyle businesses that doesn't make it past the first or the second generation at the most, right? And understanding that, and I'm in the business of minority business, right? So I see this day in and day out, right? It's so disgusting to me that we don't think beyond our generation or two generations beyond us. So if you ask me what should our current business leaders be doing, looking 7 gens out. What do I mean by that? 7 gens beyond yourself. If your business only lasts for you, then you failed, right? Your business did not meet the intent to grow our community, build capacity for generations to come. Our net worth, if it stays the same, that's nobody's issue but ours, right? I don't blame anybody if my family's net worth or my partners, Eric can call me any time of the day, Jamiel can call me any time of the day, I can call them any time of the day. You know why? Because I ain't in competition with them. My competition is how can we transform our communities to be sustainable and to go 7 generations beyond. That means we have to do some grassroots work right now. And if we ain't mad about it, who gonna be mad about it? Right? If we're not mad about getting in a room asking privilege from somebody else, listen, they're taking it. You see current administration right now trying to revoke anything that has anything to do with D&I, minority, diversity, black, white, purple, brown. He don't even care. He orange. Why in the world would I ever think he's getting ready to do something for our communities? Right? I know this will probably go viral and live. Trump may not like me like he don't like Elon Musk right now. It does not make a difference. What makes a difference? Do we control our destiny? We as business leaders need to link up, right? And nobody can break this chain. If Eric links my arm, Jamiel links my arm, this is what this looks like. That's what our business leaders look like. Now, what can our institutions do? Build capacity, right? If you got a business, you grew it as far as you could take it, sell it. And become another valuable asset in a bigger business. If we stay $200,000 or $2 million and we didn't grow to 10, that's our fault. right? If I've taken it as far as I can go, I grew a business to $30 million, I couldn't take it no more, right? I couldn't take it to the next, so I sold it and took 10% of something bigger. You see what I'm saying? My name wasn't on the building anymore, who cares? I had personal net worth now that I could transform communities. I left profitable business to go to a nonprofit to figure out what's in the weeds, where our businesses struggle. Now I can link with Eric, I can link with Jamiel, that are serial entrepreneurs that's digging into our communities, into spaces that that's what institutions can do, build capacity.
So we talked about the capital access gap. We've talked about the networking and mentorship needs. But let's talk about, now that we're in business, what type of support do we need as entrepreneurs? So entrepreneurship support is crucial for the success and sustainability of Black-owned businesses. So Melisha, can you share with us, what are the most overlooked needs of early stage Black entrepreneurs?
Sure. I think one of the most overlooked needs is investors. I think that oftentimes we feel like we're going to do it on our own because that's what we think. This is my business. I don't need anyone. I don't want anyone. But sometimes an investor can be someone who will give you their expertise or their business knowledge. So you can often partnership with other businesses to move your business further along. I think discipline is something needed in early stage entrepreneurship. I'll just be honest, in the origin of me starting Reid Financial Services, I made a decision early on that probably a year before I went into business on my own and left corporate America, helping make other people rich, I determined that I was going to cut expenses as far as I could. I was going to develop my savings to be as much as it could. And then once I went out on my own, I said, if I don't earn, well, first, let me stop. I took a huge vacation. And then I said, if I don't earn it, I can't eat it.
That's right.
So that means I stopped pedicures, I stopped getting my nails done, I stopped traveling with my friends and sorority sisters because I was determined that there was no plan B. So you really have to have discipline. Maybe not to that level, but you have to have, as my mother used to say, a made-up mind. You need to know that you're going to make it and believe that you're going to make it. The next thing I would say is having a team, right? So I have someone I can turn to that's legal. I have an accountant as well, even though I am an accountant. And you need a hype man. You need people on your team that are going to say you can do it, because you are going to get tired as an entrepreneur. You are going to have doubt and fear. You need to have a team in place. Also, I think that having financial strategy and infrastructure, you need to have processes. Just as your current employer has systems and processes in place, you as an entrepreneur, you need to have systems and processes. You need a handbook, you need structure, you need to know what you do if this happens or that doesn't happen. And then also having an understanding of your cash flow, where you can get access to capital and what you will do if things don't come through, if you lose a contract, or if an investor pulls out or backs out. You need to understand what your cash flow management is and how you're going to maneuver through hard days.
Thank you so much.
Overlooked needs, to Melisha's point, I see way too many entrepreneurs, especially Black entrepreneurs, that get super hyped. They're like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and they start tomorrow. Take your time. Like, it's not going anywhere. A lot of times people say, no, go now, somebody else is gonna steal your idea, and you tell them. Another thing, share your ideas. You never know who's in the room that can help you. A lot of times you're like, oh, I gotta keep this secret. Nothing is new under the sun. I don't care. Amazon is just a digital Sears, like, if you're being really honest. So nothing is really new under the sun. It's just applied differently to today's society. So share your ideas. You don't never know who's in the room. Take your time to start. Take time, one is to build up your own cash, because one of the things that typically no business ever truly fails, they just run out of money. So if you don't fail, you just can't pay your bills no more. You have to force to close. So no business is a failure. It's people who I know who are super wealthy that own businesses that never turn a profit, but because they have independent wealth, they fund their business because that's what they like to do. They want to go somewhere where they can smoke cigars. So they're like, oh, I got a cigar bar. And it's really for me and my friends. It never really makes a profit, but I'm gonna just open it up to the community to make some kind of cash. So I'm not, killing my pockets completely. So taking time, during that time where you're saving money, do research. That's the other thing. We lack knowledge in the spaces we're going into. So taking time, understand what you're going into, understand the financial model. A lot of times we start businesses and say, I'm gonna make $1 million. No way you could ever make $1 million given the current financial model of your business. If you are a person that makes cookies in your house, I don't care what you do, you're never turning $1 million over in your kitchen at home selling cookies. You have to figure out ways in which you can do that. So your financial model based upon your goals have to align, and also your business model and your business plan. Yeah, I really don't even like business plans. I'm just being honest. Sorry for the bankers in the room who always say you need a business plan. The bankers only really look at about 3 pages of your 50-page business plan. So quit spending like 2 years trying to come up with a business plan. They care about your executive summary. They care about your financial projections. They care about your distribution. So how are you going to get it to a customer? And then they may look at your marketing plan just because they want to see how you might market. They really don't care about that, but they just want to see it. So quit spending too much time on business plans. Focus on your business model, your financial model. Those are the 2 things that's going to indicate success. And all that comes from you taking the time to understand and learn those things. So don't start your business today because somebody said you got the best potato salad ever. Take time to understand, because even if you do potato salad, you want to get on shelves, you have to do shelf life testing. It's a process. So you just can't be like, I'm going to put this on my shelf tomorrow. Nah, it doesn't work like that. So do the research, save cash, because you're going to need cash, and 2, and then, I think that's pretty much it. That's, kind of the overlooked needs is take your time, build up your cash, your war chest. You're going to need that, because there's going to come a time where January comes and no customers are there, and you have to pay your staff, because you really don't want your staff to vote against you.
Thank you. So Mr. Brown, question for you. What does long-term support look like beyond a startup phase?
Thank you. I'll just piggyback a little bit off what Jamiel said. There is a tool out there for the aspiring entrepreneurs. It's called the Business Model Canvas. It's more of an iterative design thinking way of doing a business plan. But it does highlight some of the key things like the value proposition in your channels, kind of the highlights that we talked about, but it's a more iterative way of doing that. So maybe think about that. It also helps you through this phase, get to this phase. There's a lot of tools and programs out there that help out in the startup phase. And then you get to the startup phase and you don't know what to do. To get to the next phase, there's going to be another tranche of capital that you're going to need. And having those cash flow projections or forecasts and all those things will help you understand when you're going to need that capital. And then also tell those investors, the banker, or whomever, what you're going to use that capital for. It's going to help you know what you need that capital for. Not just because I can do whatever it is, X, Y, Z, to get to a certain point, to have that job that I purchased. But now, in order to have a business, what I call a business, Jamiel said, well, if you're a sole proprietor, that's great, nothing against that. But a business is making money when you're not there. So if you get to a point where you're not there, there's planning that has to go in. You have to know what kind of funds you're going to need, what you're going to need it for. You're also going to need to know something about HR. You're going to have to know when to hire that next person. You're going to have to know what is going to be that job description of that next person. So those might be areas where you would hire an HR professional on a contractual basis, but having that as part of it. Operations, and I'm going to have to expand facilities. All those things that are going to be a part of expanding. Who's going to do what, how they're going to do it. They're going to need coaching. And it's kind of alluded to a specific coaching in those areas that's going to help you on the business side of what it is. You might know how to do whatever it is well. And I've seen this several times. People know how to do whatever it is well, but they don't know how to run a business. In order to get that to the next phase, you have to go and get those learnings if you don't have them already. If you can't afford to pay somebody else to do them, take advantage of all those opportunities that are out there. Advanced business coaching. So you're going to need that person that's going to know those specific areas. Again, don't be too proud to ask for help. And a creative way of doing this is if you know an HR person, say, hey, for a small amount of equity, can I get you to help with my HR that I got to do? You know, an accountant for a small amount of equity in my business, is this something you can do in exchange instead of cash up front. So that's an idea of how we can work together. Pool that money together. You get your financials together and say, hey, I need $250,000. So I go to Jamiel for 200 of it, and maybe Jamiel can give me 15, and Melisha can give me whatever. My math ain't math, I just wanted to jump in what I'm trying to say. Being collective and being smart about that. They need that support that is going to help them get from a sole proprietor in order to do business. Some type of corporation where people are actually working on your business, working in your business, and you're able to work on your business to be able to grow. And so those are some of the highlight things.
And I'll offer this up to most of the business. MinoritySupplier.org. We have a lot of resources within our organization that can support small businesses. Within MinoritySupplier.org, I developed a team called BSG, is the Business Solutions Group. Some people in this room have already used them. It's an internal business brokerage house within the council. So what I do is I have some advisors, some trainers, and some lenders that we meet every Tuesday and Thursday, and we look at deals, right? And what that's all about is being able to touch you where you're at in your business, and if we can't, we try to refer you to an area that can support you in your business. So don't be shy in using that. It's www.minoritysupplier.org.
Thank you so much. So I like that. Find people to work in your business so you can work on your business. I think we need to put that up somewhere. I like that. This next question is for Melisha. Melisha, can you tell us what role should schools, colleges, and community organizations play in fostering entrepreneurship from a young age?
Sure. I think that one thing that's important is building financial literacy into curriculum. I think early on, students need to understand how to earn money, save money, invest money, and how they should be spending their money. Once you understand those pieces, I think that's a great jumping point for starting into entrepreneurship. I think also schools and other organizations need to foster and nurture what works for a student. Not every student learns the same, they don't remember things the same. If you, even in your household or your own network, if you see children, I remember having a cousin who used to take apart everything, clocks and watches, and he was always in trouble for that. That child probably should have been nurtured because he ended up being an engineer. So that's what he liked to do, and that's what he wanted to do with his mind. So I think schools they have a unique opportunity to foster and develop what kids like to do and what young people gravitate toward to. I think also there is a piece of mentorship that should come early on, saying this is what you can do and this is how you can do it, and pulling them and guiding them along. I think exposing them to creative opportunities. There isn't a one-size-fits-all for most students, so giving them the chance to build on what they already like to do is really important.
Awesome. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, can I say one thing real quick?
Yes,
she just brought it up. In an example of that young man that was an engineer, I think we also need to look for opportunities for folks that know how to run a business, to partner with folks that have a specific skill like that, to be able to go out there and take advantage of opportunities that present themselves in the marketplace. That's just one example. Somebody knows how to build homes. They don't know the business side. Somebody knows business. How can they partner to really take advantage of opportunities in the marketplace?
Awesome.
Really quick, a lot of people think entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs start when they're 20, and that's just kind of glamorized by Silicon Valley. The vast majority of entrepreneurs and successful business owners start in their 40s because you have a lot of career and corporate experience. So those of you who are have been in corporate America, this is my altar call. Leave your businesses safely, like Melisha, and start, because a lot of times, what they're paying you is 1/18 of your value. And all you really need to do is find that one client or one customer that essentially replaces or partially replaces what you're currently making, and you're worth more. So a lot of times you bring in, I forgot what the number was, but for McDonald's, the person that brings in an order is worth more than minimum wage to McDonald's. They're worth like, I think, $300,000 or so in cashier. So, so just if you have those skills and you have, and you need some support, that's what we're here for, to help you look at how do you transition from corporate America to start your business, because we need more businesses to scale.
And just as a follow-up, as a business owner, I think everything that they said is so relevant. You also need to employ, when you're thinking about employing people, not everyone needs to be immediately aligned to your business. If you can find, for instance, if you can find someone that has great work ethic and that wants a job and they're hungry and willing to work, think about employing them in your business, because you do need to grow and scale, and you do need to have your business run when you're not available. So both of my children, they were vehemently opposed to becoming accountants. They never wanted to become accountants. So I never pictured them working in my business. But then all of a sudden I was like, you know what? My son has this degree from Indiana University I helped pay for. Let me see what he wants to do in my business, right? So he is employed full time in my business. And my daughter, she has great organizational skills. And I kept thinking, well, what could she do? Well, she can write proposals. She can keep my calendar. She can connect my new clients to my survey, get them onboarded. So then when we have HR projects, she's the one writing the handbooks. She's the one reaching out to the customers and clients. So just remember that if you are the business owner, think outside the box about who you employ. Because you can employ your children and you can employ other people that may not have the same degree or background as you. That's all.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions from the audience, but I want to pose this this last segment, this section that we have here around community investment strategies, and then if we have time, we'll take these 2 questions. So community investment strategies are essential for fostering equity, economic growth, and long-term resilience in underserved and historically marginalized communities. This is especially impactful in communities of color, where systemic disinvestment has historically limited economic mobility. And so the question that I have for Mr. Brown and Mr. Grice is, what does a thriving, self-sustaining business, Black business ecosystem look like to you?
All right, and I know our time is running short, so I'll be relatively brief. It's the opposite of what we talked about today. It's representation throughout all the sectors, particularly those sectors that lend themselves for high growth sectors, professional technical services, leasing, or otherwise owning property and renting it out to other folks, construction, manufacturing, some of those other industries that we're very underrepresented in and less represented in some of the lifestyle and neighborhood businesses. Capital is flowing, dollars are circulating, people are being able to experience their full entrepreneurial selves, and there's a difference between entrepreneurial business owners, so entrepreneurs, business owners, so that we're able to support our local institutions, financial institutions, our own local financial institutions, but that where we are people are able to participate in this business, greater business economy to the extent that they want to. We know that the number one economic issue for our region is that we have to become more inclusive, so that we have all these other, and to do so, we have all these things in place. Again, it's been set up here in abundance of resources, and you guys can check in with us to help us get there, but it has to be a collective model. We have to work together. If we're not going to work together, I don't want to be negative. We're trying to go from deficit-based to asset-based. I believe, I have the hope that we're going to be able to work together to see a change. As Jamiel said, it's for the next generations to build. It's for the next generations. I've seen in one of my previous careers, there's a gentleman that worked at GM for 30 years. He retired out, took out his pension. He started a machine shop, employed his 2 sons, and that machine shop went out into several $100,000s of business a year. I think we can do it in our community. We have the apparatus. We are putting apparatuses in place to make sure that we have the capital between Capital Access Northwest Michigan, the network that Bill talked about, as well as the one-on-one coaching, specific coaching, to make sure that anyone who wants to be in business or an entrepreneur can do so.
Thank you, Mr. Grice.
All right, and Eric gave you all the technical, and I don't have anything to add to that technical. But one thing that I would say is, what does it look like? It looks like our dollars circulating through our communities more than 6 hours. It has to circulate in our communities 20 to 30 days like it does in thriving communities. Second, I think we have to look like the Wall Street model. What does that mean? Our communities have to look like Wall Street. It sickens me to understand that Wall Street model and the existence of it, that they burned down to the ground, we have not replicated in our communities in over 100 years. And we have more educated folk, we have more people of color that has wealth, we have more people of color that have at least $1 million, and I know we always hear we don't have network. Trust and believe, we do have people of color that have $1 million. Trust and believe that. Don't get it twisted, not 1 second. In Grand Rapids, do we? Yes. They just won't surface themselves because they don't want to be a target, right? What does that look like? That looks like us pulling on them every chance we get for $5,000 here, $10,000 there, $2,000 there. And by the time they're exhausted, right, get with them and let them help you build to scale. What does that mean? That means coming together, and I want to show you this one more time as I just shut up, and we're going to link arms. What does it look like? It looks like this. This is what it looks like.
Very nice close to that. 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds each, one question. What is the one thing that you wish, what is the one thing you know now you wish you had known about business and entrepreneurship when you started? 5 seconds.
5 seconds. I think it's that you're not there to tell the client what they need. You're there to listen and understand what they need and then meet that need.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Grice?
I don't want to make this about religion, but I wish I knew I could do all things through Christ that strengthens me.
All right.
Well, what can I say behind that? Because I agree with that, but I would just say I wish I knew earlier about the possibility of being a business owner through acquisition versus just entrepreneurship.
I wish I knew always other people's money. Never wrong.
There it is. All right. Well, again, as we close today's conversation, and we do have one other question, but we'll make sure we follow up on that. As we close today's conversation, let's remember that economic empowerment is not just a goal, it's a movement. A movement rooted in resilience, innovation, and the unwavering belief that Black businesses are not only vital to our communities, they are the future of our economy. We've heard today how access to capital, mentorship, and networks can transform not just businesses, but entire neighborhoods. We've seen how community investments can break generational cycles of disinvestment and create new legacies of ownership, opportunity, and pride. But this work doesn't end here. Each of us, whether entrepreneur, investor, policymaker, or ally, has a role to play. Let's commit to supporting Black businesses, not just in word, but in action. Let's build ecosystems where Black entrepreneurs can thrive, innovate, and lead. Because when Black businesses rise, communities rise. And when communities rise, we all rise. Thanks for being a part of this journey, and let's keep building together. Another thank you and a warm round of applause for our panelists today.